Hi, this is Dr. Corey Stack here again. I just wanted to talk about something that seems to be attracting a lot of attention internationally, and that's my work on whistleblowing. And that's only part of the work I do. I do a lot of work on other areas of, a lot of other areas, regarding to human rights. But this is a particular issue of concern. But one of the issues that I've investigated is this particular issue, and I think it just shows, well, it doesn't portray Ireland in a good way with regard to compliance with EU human rights, and it's yes, the certain bodies have raised this, as an issue, but unfortunately, it hasn't been, listened to. So let me just raise it here. It's whistleblowers betrayed how Ireland's 6-month rule silences truth tellers. Whistleblowers are supposed to be heroes, people who speak up when they see corruption, fraud, or abuse. But in Ireland today, those same truth-tellers are being punished, not just by their employers, but by the law itself. Welcome to Primetime Investigates, the reality after the cameras stop rolling. This is what happens when the system designed to protect whistleblowers quietly turns against them. Under European law, the EU Whistleblowers Directive 2019-1937, I think that's very interesting given its constitutional significance in Ireland. Every person who reports wrongdoing has the right to be protected, heard, and free from retaliation. The EU's message is very clear. If we silence those who expose corruption, we destroy democracy from within. That's why the directive calls for strong, fair, and trauma-informed protection systems. And I like that. I like that because that's what I'm advocating independently. Systems that make reporting safe, not career-ending. Ireland transposed that directive into a national law through the Protective Disclosures 2014, later amended in 2022 under the auspices, as I understand it, allegedly by Minister Michael McGrath, who's now in Europe. But here's the catch. If a whistleblower is punished for speaking up, demoted, fired, bullied, or blacklisted, they have just 6 months to bring a claim before the Workplace Relations Commission. 6 months. I mean, if you're traumatised, in a sense of bullied or fired, surely it will take you years to recover before you realise you were stitched up, in inverted commas, allegedly. 6 months, and if they're late, they lose all rights to compensation, protection, or justice. This is Ireland. Who's behind this narrowing of justice? Think again. Legal capture, allegedly. Retaliation doesn't happen overnight. It's often a slow burn. Exclusion, performance reviews, whispered rumours, block promotions, all done very covertly. Don't let that person in there. She'll tell the truth, and we want people to, do as we want. I'm not saying not tell the truth, but keep their mouth shut, etc. Many whistleblowers spent months trying to resolve things internally or simply survive emotionally. By the time they realise they've been punished, the clock has already run out. So the very law meant to protect them ends up penalising them for being traumatised, patient, or cautious. Here's the problem. The EU directive, as I've just investigated, being the prime time investigators after the camera, doesn't set a fixed time limit. There you go. See, it only says. I mean, this is why people are on my website, and these are not, activists going out with doing bad things. They're just thinkers. They're rational people, and they can see the unfairness of it all. And they're very rational, but they're disillusioned because even the most rational people are, affected by this. It only says an irrational normal, but they can see through all of this. And it just needs someone to kind of, investigate it on their behalf, which is what I'm doing because, it's interesting for me anyway. But, as I say, there's a lot of people reading my work on all around the world on this. So I have to, just highlight how how bad things are in Ireland and who's behind it. I can only see certain parts of the legal profession, allegedly, but I don't know who else makes these laws. I mean, the legal profession are the ones that create the laws, but they're not the people who kind of enact them. But it's all about limiting the liability of the government. But who are they really serving? The government or the taxpayer? This is the point. It only says that protections must be effective, proportionate and dissuasive against retaliation. Is 6 months fall into that category? In other countries like France, Germany or the Netherlands, whistleblowers have up to 2 or even 3 years to seek justice. That's the difference compared to 6 months. But in Ireland, 6 months, maybe 12 if you beg. That's not protection. That's bureaucracy designed to make sure the state and large employers face as little accountability as possible. Now, this is in line with my other papers, which are all about how the institutions does everything to shield itself from scrutiny. So it's the same thing. So this leads into legal capture and the human cost. This is what experts, and I've called it before, I mean, this is not my terminology, but I picked it up from the literature. It's an excellent terminology. Legal capture. When laws are written to look protective, but in reality, they protect institutions, not people. I mean, this is going on wholesale, as what I can see. And who benefits? Legal firms, compliance officers, public bodies that tick the boxes while the whistleblowers' life fall apart. I mean, we saw this. Many whistleblowers featured in primetime investigators a few years ago lost their jobs, their health, even their families. I mean, the amount of money they were paying to try and defend themselves was astronomical. And of course, they weren't failed by their conscience. They were failed by the law. Whistleblowing is not about just one worker's grievance. It's about democracy, transparency and accountability. If the law punishes truth tellers to impossible deadlines, we all lose because corruption goes unchallenged and power stays unaccountable. And not so much corruption, but wrongdoing within the meaning of the act, we'll say, put it like that. So ask yourself, should a whistleblower's right to justice expire after 6 months? Or should Ireland align with the true spirit of EU law, protecting courage, not punishing it? If you believe in transparency, share this message, because silence isn't neutrality, it's complicity. Now, the reason I'm doing this video is there's a lot of interest on my work, on the original work on the protection solutions that I did, between 2014 and 2018, and then the amended, the work I did more recently on the commissioner establishing the commissioner's role and the huge limitations in his role, that is very damaging to and it seems to me to render Ireland's whistleblowing current legislation uncompliant. And this is another place where I mean, every possible way the legal capture, inverted commas, has come in. It's like mines coming in. They're everywhere, and they're there with their bullying tactics. And is this what we want from democracy? I'm not saying the legal profession, but elements of it. There are very ethical legal practitioners. There are very ethical legal judges. But is this what we want from our so-called democratic system, that the legal profession will do it, provided they're paid massive amounts of money? I mean, I'm not against, legal people, because they're very ethical solicitors. But like, when you look at what's been done here, and to which legal firm in Dublin were behind this? There's a number of the big six. Which one of them can say, we did all this, put up the hands? There's only 6 or 7 of them there, and it has to be one of them, or was it a few of them? But I don't know, because it's very hard. I've checked everywhere, very hard to get who these people are. They're covering up through all kinds of shielding, and impossible to find out which legal firm was responsible for all of the commissioners who drafted the amendment, and who drafted this 6 months, which legal firm were behind it. I mean, ultimately the government, signed it into law, but they were, behind the scenes were solicitors, and I suppose convincing them that this was their best way of mitigating liability. But this is not in the interest of whistleblowing or the interest of the taxpayer. So So if you believe in transparency, share this message, because silence isn't. I mean, I'd argue myself, that the 6 months itself is penalisation under the Act. That's what I'd argue. If I was, doing it, I'd say this is actually penalisation under the Act relative to EU law. Because I think that's what it is. It's clear, it's very clear when you look at what's going on, the rights people have in Germany and other places, that understands the traumatic nature of whistleblowing retaliation, that it's kind of incorporated into the time allowed for making claims of penalisation. Not that I'm for arbitration first anyway, but it's just currently these laws are, it's reprehensible. Well, I'm not saying reprehensible, but it's most concerning that nobody's talking up about this. Nobody's spotting all the flaws. I mean, it's not that I spot the flaws, but I'm able to see what other people can't see, and perhaps it's just because I have that kind of forensic mind, and being a mathematician, that gives you that extra edge of rigour, that you can see through all this facade of this facade that's out there, of so-called legality, and it's very, very concerning what's going on. So it's all there. Somebody's going to come on and spot it sometimes. Now, I do think that certain groups in Ireland raised concerns about this when it was being implemented, but they were ignored. I think the Human Rights Commission, the Commissioner for Human Rights, a couple of months